Hey, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. For the first time, we are doing a show in the offseason. And for the first time since his wife had their second child, Zach Meisel has come up for air. How does it feel, Zach?
uh, Tiring.
Yeah.
My hands are finally free of diapers. It feels great. No, it's.
Of course it does.
I've been
And listen, ultimately, guys can't complain because the women do the hard part, you know?
I've been itching to. I mean, how have we? You know how hard it was to not jump on here and talk to you about all the big moves. Austin Hedges coming back, and they now have a new senior vice president of hitting, and
Big.
everything they've done. We have so much to cover.
Yeah. We'll get to all of it. The big Austin Hedges re-signing, Matthew Boyd going to the Cubs. We'll see if the Guardians blew it or not on that situation, and what they have in store for us, if anything, this offseason. That's all coming up on the Ultimate. A little rusty. I cut off my own intro there. All right, Zach. So you mentioned it jokingly, of course. They at least they re-signed Austin Hedges earlier this offseason. Last year, I feel like it was much later. But Austin Hedges does re-sign. I don't have a problem with that move, because we know what he is. We've been through it a million times. The frustrating part about it is that it feels like we're headed to another offseason where maybe that's the only money they spend. And if that's the case, it's frustrating. But I can't blame Austin Hedges. If they're not going to spend any money, then that $4 million wasn't going to do him any good anyway.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as whether we could debate whether a guy who's going to hit $150 is worth a roster spot. But if they feel so strongly, and by they, I mean teammates, coaches, and the front office, that he is important to what they do, who are we to argue that? The key is making sure that he's not a guy at the plate that you have to game plan with in a key postseason situation. So, one, it puts pressure on Bo Naylor to have a breakout season finally, because you're not going to have David Fry for at least part of the season. Two, it can't prevent you from doing anything else. Like
Right.
it that can't be, well, we might have been able to go get an outfielder, but we really wanted to allot those $4 million to Austin Hedges. And so we only had $7 million left to spend. Like, that's not going to fly, because vibes are great, but you need more than vibes to win a World Series after 76 years of not doing so. So, like, I think there's value to him in the room, and who am I to say there's not when they all say it? But this team still has a lot of holes to fix, and he can't prevent them from doing that.
Yeah, right now they are a team that, overachieved to some degree last year, I think. And they're worse. They're worse than they were when the season ended. Matthew Boyd pitched well for them down the stretch. He's gone. There's a couple, obviously Shane Bieber situation. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Alex Cobb is a free agent. So now they haven't lost any significant pieces, but let's start with the Boyd thing there, because obviously he signed with the Cubs. It's a lot of money for a fourth, fifth starter, which I think is what you look at him. But, and I don't know that I can kill the Guardians for not signing him, but that's the price of doing business. It's not like his contract's an outlier. Frankie Montas, who's been worse than him. Now he's not been but he's been injured too at times. He got paid even more than Boyd did. So I don't know. What do you think about that from a Guardians perspective? Are you surprised they let him get away? Or are you like, they're not going to spend $15 million on a guy like him?
It depends what's next.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big thing to me. You can't, because I was talking to people late in the season about just, man, you've arrived sooner than you thought, and you have a good farm system, and a lot of what is good about your farm system is upper level hitting prospects, and that's what you've needed. And I was saying like, man, this is all going in the right direction and this is great. And Cyrus remembers someone cautioning me and saying, we have a lot to figure out with our starting pitching, and it's not a position we're used to being in.
Yeah.
So they recognize that there's an issue here, and outside of Tanner Bybee, it's all question marks. At the
Oh,
moment, you're
100%.
rolling into a season with Bybee and Gavin Williams and Tristan McKenzie and Ben Lively and Joey Cantillo.
Or Logan Allen. Yeah, I'm not
Or
feeling good
Logan
about any of those
Allen. I
guys.
mean, that's a lot of question marks. So, Boyd, it's tough. I felt like I was skeptical of what he was doing the entire season until maybe
Sure.
his last postseason start, and then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I know nothing. This guy has just been nails
Yeah.
every time out for the Guardians. You've no recourse here but to just trust the guy. What does that mean moving forward? I mean, he pitched better than he had ever pitched, and he was doing it coming straight off of Tommy John surgery. So I don't know what to expect for him, but you're right. Like that's, $15 million a year for a starting pitcher is just, that's what they cost now. And
Right.
so
That's it.
the Guardians, some of it's injury related, some of it's just stall development and prospects. You never know, but they have a gap here in the pitching pipeline.
Oh,
And they
big time.
figure out a way to fill it. And so sometimes you have to spend some money to do that, or you have to swing a trade. But I immediately when I saw he signed with the Cubs, I thought of you, because what was your initial reaction knowing, the Cubs have been your team?
Yeah.
And I assume you're thinking of it as someone who follows the Guardians and roots for the Guardians and also the Cubs. So I feel like you're the perfect person to talk about it.
So on its own, I think it's fine. Obviously with his injury history and his pitching history is a guy who's a slightly below average starter. That's what he's been. He's not terrible. He's not been a terrible pitcher, but I'm fine in theory with him being the Cubs' fourth or fifth starter. I don't have a problem with that. My problem from a Cubs perspective, and this depends on what else they do this offseason, and obviously the Cubs will spend a lot more money than the Guardians do. They're not going to spend Yankees, Dodgers, Mets money, but they're going to spend a lot more than the Guardians. My problem is the Cubs really need an ace. They don't really need – I think they've got a lot of middle and back-end starters already. Shota Imanaga, who was an older rookie because he came over from Japan, and Justin Steele are really good pitchers. But to me, they're a 2 and a 3, not a 1 and a 2. So I wanted the Cubs to – and they still may, because I'm reading this morning that the Cubs are in play for Garrett Crochet, so we'll see. But I wanted them to get a legit number one starter. If they still do that, if they get Crochet, then I like Boyd even more, because I like Boyd on the back end of a rotation where you're not really relying on him. So if you're going, let's say they get Crochet in a trade, and now it's Crochet, Steele, Imanaga, Tyone's your fourth starter, and now Matthew Boyd's my number 5. Yeah, I'm fine with that, because I got some young pitchers that if he misses, because he's probably going to miss some time because he always does. So, let's say he makes 20 starts this year. Okay, well, I'm fine with that. But if that's the only starting pitcher move the Cubs make, I don't like it. If they make another one more towards the front end of the rotation, then I'm fine with it. It's a little bit of an overpay, but I don't know if it's that much based on the current market and what you're seeing. Like, it looks like, a fourth starter is $15 million a year. A third starter's like 22. A number 2 starter's 27, and then a number 1 starter's 35. Those are kind of the lines of where the pitchers are right now.
And that's money that the Guardians are never going to pay.
I know. And then if they're not, what they've either got to do is make trades, as you said. Now, I don't know what a lot of their major league ready young players, their trade value's down, a lot of those guys that we've been talking about over the last few years. Now, they certainly have a couple of guys that have trade value, but they're going to need to pull the trigger. They've been sitting on their hands in terms of trades for a number of years. But yes, for the first time in a long time, you go into a season. I mean, even last year, it didn't feel like there were as many question marks, certainly because Bieber was healthy. And this is the first time in a long time that you feel like there's more questions than answers in their rotation.
And also it's because the expectations are heightened.
Right.
Like, we could say that they arrived early, they overachieved, etc., but they were a first place team.
That's right.
They were jockeying for the best record in the league from start to finish.
Yep. And they
I
went
mean,
to the ALCS.
Whether it was their timeline or not, who cares?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like, you can't have a great season like that and then tell the fans, well, we overachieved. We arrived a little early, so we're going to scale back. We're going to go into the next season looking to develop a little more and seeing what we have with our guys. Like, that's not the message to send. Now, does that mean that they're going to go gangbusters and sign a bunch of guys and make a bunch of trades and go into this new season with a roster that is head and shoulders better than what it is right now? Probably not. So I don't know. I feel like they have. I'm also just tired of this whole rigmarole. Like, the typical Guardians offseason, like, you go into the offseason thinking, well, they're not going to do anything. It's going to be a cold, quiet winter. And then maybe some time passes and some guys don't sign, and you start talking yourself into, oh, maybe they'll make they'll sign like a medium tier outfielder or something. They'll swing a trade or two. Then the winter meetings come and go, and you probably go back to okay, they're not doing anything. Then it's like January 17th, and they sign someone to a 1-year, $6 million deal. I'm just tired of, and I think part of it is the state of baseball too, and the fact that, like, it was the Guardians and the Mets and the Dodgers and the Yankees, and like the Guardians clearly are the team that doesn't belong.
Yeah,
and I don't know if it's my personality. I'm just thinking, like, if I was an owner, like, if you're an owner, you have to have an ego.
Absolutely.
And I would just think, man, you get that close. The Dolans are only going to own this team for another couple of years before they hand it off to David Blitzer. Don't you want to go out on top? Don't you want to leave your mark, your legacy? You own the team still because your dad is hanging on in his 90s and he's wanted to see a championship. You guys are lifelong Clevelanders. And I don't know. I'm not saying, like, go spend hundreds of millions of dollars and have an unsustainable payroll and stuff. But if you're ever going to have flexibility after what you just witnessed for 2024, isn't that what you should build on? Isn't that the right time to go above and beyond to fill your needs and keep riding that momentum? In this town, like you said, like, this is our first conversation of the offseason.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few that are held about this team during the winter. There's no radio station talking Guardians.
Nope.
Ever, let alone, like, the home of the Guardians isn't talking about them around the clock. And there's just, like, there are ways to get people still excited so that they're counting down the days to spring training.
I agree with everything you said there, Zach. And I could hear the frustration in your voice because you cover a team and you want, and how the diehard fan base, the people that are watching us right now, that love this team and want to believe in this team that they can do it again. And you're right. Really, since Edwin Encarnacion, every offseason since then has been a huge disappointment. Like that year, they followed up the World Series, and then they went all in by getting Encarnacion, and it's been downhill ever since. And they can make all the excuses they want about COVID, about the TV deal. I don't buy any of it. You brought in, you mentioned, that they're going to be, giving up the ownership eventually here in the next 5 years. Why do I just forget the
David
name
Blitzer.
of it? Blitzer. Thank you. And like he's that guy's super wealthy. Is he not contributing any further financially? Like what is happening that their payroll is so low? They're paying Jose a lot of money. They're paying Jimenez a lot of money. Obviously now he's going to get but it's the first time. Josh Naylor, if he's here, will get a good contract in terms of arbitration. Like nobody else is making much money. I think I think Austin Hedges is will be their 5th or 6th highest paid player on the team. So, I mean, if you're only paying 3 guys, I think Lane Thomas will probably make $7-8 million this year. If you're paying 4 guys more than $5 million and maybe 6 or 7 guys more than $2 million, you have to be able to spend. And again, everybody's pissed about the Dodgers, and I get it. And really, it's just the Dodgers right now. It used to be the Yankees. It's not even the Yankees. I mean, obviously, they have a significantly higher payroll.
It's going to be the Mets.
It's probably going to be the Mets here. Yes, right, because they've actually cut their payroll $150 million in the last 2 years, but they're going to build it back up. But so I get it. Nobody is asking for the Dolans to spend in that crazy stratosphere. But for the millionth time, and it's just so frustrating to continue to say this, if their payroll was just $150 million, what a difference with this front office that could make.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
and you're not asking for that to be the permanent payroll.
Right.
Scale back in years where you're not going to be as good.
That's right. But now is the time. You're 100% right. And they've got such clear holes, clear needs, and you could fill these things. It's not like they got a million holes. The bullpen's in great shape. You got some key guys in the lineup. You need a hitter or two. You need a starting pitcher. We're not asking them to go sign 15 guys. And I don't even care if they can get good players without spending a lot of money. So be it. Trade whoever. I don't care. To me, you could trade anybody in the system, including Travis Bazzana. I don't care. I want proven major league talent in those spots.
So what the Dodgers have done, what the Mets are trying to do, they're guaranteeing their spot in the tournament. It's really hard to survive 162 games. We've seen good teams inexplicably go 80-82 because there are injuries. There are just guys who have bad years. But if you spend so much money and get so much top tier talent, it's pretty foolproof. The Dodgers are going to be in the playoffs in 2025.
Yes.
Right? There was never.
Now, the Mets weren't a couple of years ago with a huge payroll, but that's the anomaly.
Right. And so, but it's trying to guarantee your spot, right?
Yes.
How many different things would have to go catastrophically wrong for the Dodgers to not make the playoffs? Now, will they win the World Series? I don't know, because there's a lot more randomness in October. And if you're the Guardians, you were on the doorstep of the World Series. I mean, you tasted it. You smelled it. That should motivate you to go out and cement yourself as a team that, barring some catastrophe, is going to be in the playoffs.
But that doesn't seem to motivate him in any way.
No.
And what's crazy about it is there'll be some people that defend owners, which I'll never understand, who will say, well, he doesn't have the money that other owners do.
And don't own the team.
Exactly.
No one is forcing you to do it.
Exactly. And whenever he sells the team, think about what did he pay to buy the Guardians? I don't even remember.
$323 million.
Okay. And what's he going to sell it for eventually?
1-point-something billion.
So don't tell me he doesn't have the money. The money's there. I mean, it's just crazy. And people get screwed up because they're like, well, I mean, those teams are making way more money. Sure. The Dodgers and Yankees could probably have $500 million payrolls and not lose money, is my guess. I mean, they don't open their books, so you don't know. But the Dodgers and Yankees and teams like that are printing money. So are the Cubs. They sell out Wrigley Field every game. So
the question that, and I've asked this too many times, and that's why I'm not allowed to ask it anymore. I'm not naive enough to think the reason you own a sports team is you make some money off of it, right? It's an investment. And there's a lot of great stuff that comes with it. I mean, if you're a rich dude, and you want to sit in the fanciest seat at a stadium or an arena and watch your team win championships, that's great. The Dolans, they're from here. This is a childhood dream of theirs, I'm sure. But if you claim you're losing money,
right?
Which is it? Do you own the team because you want to see your hometown team win a World Series, or do you want to own a team to make money? And because if you're not doing either, then what is the point of any of this? And you hear the frustration in my voice, and it's because I'm tired of having the same conversations every offseason. I'm tired of the tenor of the conversation between myself and listeners, readers, or just fans with each other is just always so depressing.
Yeah.
It's not like that in any other sport either. That's
Right.
the thing. Like I in football, there's a little bit of it if you're trying to find a quarterback, but a lot of times, it's hope springing eternal with the draft. The
That's right.
draft is so big because it could fix all your problems
Yeah.
in one off season. That's it though. Like it's not like you're not hoping the
Yeah.
Cavs would sign some big free agent, but they never spend money and
Right.
these aren't conversations we have with other sports. And part of the issue with baseball and why it's become so regionalized and also just it's lost its footing in a lot of cities is because of this. It captures your attention if your team is surprisingly good for 6 months. That's it. Otherwise,
That's right.
it's depressing conversation from November to March.
Right. If you root for a team like the Guardians, like you're not listening to MLB radio this time of year because and you have guys on there like my guy Mike Ferrin, who I love. Like Mike will talk about the Guardians. He's just as happy to talk about the Guardians as the Yankees, but the Guardians are giving him nothing to talk about. And that's and in recent, especially the last few years, there's been nothing. It's not even like yeah, okay, a couple of years ago they signed Josh Bell and Zunino, but just give me a mid-tier trade. I mean, give me something to sink my teeth into that I could be like, okay, like even the Lane Thomas type of move, like make another move like that, do something like.
And they might.
There.
Let's also,
yeah, it's
it
early.
is December 4th.
Yeah,
the winter meetings are next week, and like it is perfectly possible that they do something like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's true.
They need to.
Yeah. Let me give a quick read here, folks. Let me talk to you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle FanDuel. NFL action with FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/UCSS. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let me get a couple of chats from the fans. Forceman 47. The unfortunate answer is no, because the owner refuses to spend money and this market is expensive. They'll use the TV contract to make all the excuses in the world. John says, good to see Bull and Zach back in the mix. Thanks, guys. Jake, is it true the 2025 season has been canceled because the Dodgers have bought all the players? By the way, I know it's at this point it's too late. And I'm not going to kill the Dodgers for spending money. I kill the teams that don't spend money, even though the disparity in payroll is bad for the sport, because, it creates fan bases like we're talking about where there's nothing to follow really in the offseason. But this idea that you could defer so many contracts, I think that's bad. And I think they didn't think about that because in the past, most players have not been willing to do that, especially a significant portion of the payroll. But since Ohtani did it last year, now all these guys are doing it with the Dodgers. And that just gives them even another advantage, which is crazy. And
so think about Conference Championship Sunday.
Yeah.
You've got your final 2 AFC teams, final 2 NFC teams. You ever thinking about those market sizes on
Never.
that day?
Never
payroll,
never
cap space.
Nope.
No. Kansas City, not a huge market.
Yeah.
They're there every year.
We've seen Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore,
you had a
Cincinnati.
Kansas City, Tampa Bay Super Bowl.
Yeah. Doesn't
Imagine
matter.
if it was Royals Rays in the ALCS.
Yeah.
Manfred would freak. Yeah. We need to get to a point where we're not thinking about that, where it doesn't matter. And it'll probably never happen. But
I think with the deferring money, that money should still count towards the payroll tax.
100%.
Based on, you take the total amount of the contract and how many years it is, and then you average it. You shouldn't be able to stretch it beyond just because you're paying them beyond. That's ridiculous. Joel said I was not listening. I don't know what, no. So, sometimes I'm looking at stuff on my computer You get into this business, you got to be able to multitask a little bit. So I was listening. Trust me, Joel, even if it looked like I wasn't. Bruce says, wonder how the new TV deal will hurt or help the team financially. Do we know about that? I know that's an
No,
excuse.
not exactly yet, but like they didn't spend a cent last offseason because they were worried about the TV deal. And then
Yeah.
the deal they ended up getting was only slightly smaller than what it would have been.
Right. So
they made more money off that than they plotted for last year.
Bullshit.
So if they make less this year, who cares? Like,
that's right. It's not an excuse.
But you'll absolutely hear that. I'm sure you'll hear that next week.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you will. Well, let's hope. What do you think is going to happen with Shane Bieber? What's your best guess?
I really don't know because he's such a unique case because Boyd just showed us like the blueprint for someone coming back from Tommy John. Bieber told me he hopes he can be ready to go. I think July, probably more realistic than June, but he said June or July. So there's just so many different variables here. One, if you're him, like Boyd waited to sign, and his agent is Scott Boras, and he waited to sign until he had recovered. He held a showcase in early June. I think 18 teams showed up. Took a few weeks to figure out who he wanted to sign with, which teams were most interested in him, and then like 3-4 weeks later, he signed with the Guardians, and he was back on the mound, I think early August. So with Bieber, and he only signed the 1-year deal, so it was 2 months to basically rebuild his value.
Yep.
With Bieber, he'll have a little more runway if he's back, July and maybe even late June. Do you take that risk? Do you say, oh, why sign a 2-year deal when I can just maybe showcase that I'm healthy July, August, September, and then sign a big contract? Or is it better to rebuild your value over a year and a half, and then you can get the mega deal that maybe you were hoping for a couple years ago? I really don't know. And then it's, if you're only going to sign for 1 year, well, I think teams could outbid the Guardians. If you're a big payroll team,
no doubt,
you could take more risks like that, and push the Guardians off the table. So I don't know. Part of it is like Bieber's preferences on how he wants to approach this. Also, is he so comfortable with Cleveland's medical team that he wants to keep using them? When you're a free agent, you're on your own. Boyd was training and recovering on his own up in the Pacific Northwest. So it's a really difficult one to figure out. I would think he'd have a lot of suitors, but like how comfortable are teams with the whole process of a pitcher coming back from Tommy John? You don't know. And you probably have to be a good team too, right? Because you're banking on second half contributions.
Right. Yeah. If you're a bad team, what's the point?
Right. It's not like you can, if you're bad, you can flip them at the trade deadline. That's not happening here.
Yeah. I want to say, I'd love to see them sign Walker Buehler, who I think is going to have a big season this year.
Yeah, I like him.
I'd love to see them sign Teoscar Hernandez, who strikes out, but he's like perfect middle of the lineup hitter. But I just know they're not going to sign those guys. It just sucks. And those guys are not getting crazy money.
What do you think Buehler gets? Does he need a pillow deal like to rebuild his?
I guess it depends. It seems like there's a number of teams interested, but that could be just agent nonsense. I mean, the Dodgers, the team he was on, they're letting him walk. They didn't even offer him a qualifying offer, but there was a report that he would have accepted the qualifying offer, which makes me think maybe the money's not going to be huge. I think like he'd be a good investment. I think get him on a 2-3 year deal. Like I'd love that. But are they just, like even that's going to be probably more money than they're willing to spend. I mean, how much different would you feel about this team if they had Teoscar Hernandez and Walker Buehler? That'd be a huge difference.
Hernandez should get a good contract, though. Shouldn't he? He had a really good year.
Yeah, but he's older and he's, he strikes out. I don't know. I just like he's not going to get crazy money. What's he going to get a year? 20 million?
32. Yeah.
20, maybe 25.
Yeah, but they've literally.
No, I know they're not going to do it, but Like if they sign those two guys, okay, now their payroll's 130 million or 140. I don't know what it's going to be exactly, but like that's not unreasonable to ask. But they've become so stingy that even asking for those guys seems impossible.
Yeah, I mean they've gotten burned, right?
Yeah.
They're paying Miles Straw to hit up Buckeye Donuts.
Hey, I don't give him any pass for that. You knew what he was. You knew.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
They've made mistakes. Is what I'm saying.
And the Jimenez
agents,
contract's not looking great right now.
They paid Gene Segura $8 million last season, and he's never been to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Swisher and Bourne didn't work out. What I'm saying is they're scared of their own shadow. Like they've been burned before, and it makes them risk averse now.
Yeah.
Even though you have to. No one's ever won a championship without taking a risk.
That's right.
And they're going to have to do that at some point, or, we'll be here and talking on December 4th, 2047 about David Blitzer not making the moves necessary.
All right. The next Ultimate Guardian show will be either when the Guardians make a big move. And if they don't in the next month, we'll probably do one right after the new year. So hopefully we'll be back before then because that means they've done something of significance. Last thing, Zach, Corey Kluber, of all people, is doing a podcast now.
I listened to it this morning.
All right. Tell me about it. Because, like, the guy never liked to talk, at least publicly. How shocking is it that he's doing a podcast?
It's very shocking. I will say there were, like, because everyone always said he was, like, the clubhouse clown.
Yeah.
Loved pulling pranks, and you'd always be like, what? That guy?
Yeah.
But there were, like, little glimpses, like, a couple times a year where if you got him one-on-one, he'd be pretty good to talk to and like kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And he's the same guy on the podcast where he's quiet. All his answers or his contributions are short, but like you can tell that there's substance. Like he says some interesting stuff on there. I listened to one episode.
Check it out.
This morning. I saw Jeff Passan was on. So I listened to that and it was pretty good conversation.
What did they say about Trevor Bauer? I didn't get a chance to hear it yet. Did you get to hear?
Just that they were talking about like marketing the game better and the co-host who isn't great or at least I don't know. I felt like he didn't add a ton, but he was bringing up Bauer and how he had like a YouTube channel or something and. They asked Passan about it, and Passan just said, well, Trevor Bauer blocked me a long time ago. And Kluber said, you're probably telling the truth too much or something.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I mean, Kluber taking a shot at Bauer. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Not a surprise, though. All right, folks. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll keep you up to date on when we'll be back. Zach, good luck getting some sleep. Hope your wife is doing well. And we'll talk to you next time on the Ultimate Cleveland Guardian Show. All right, man.